Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And some of my subscribers have awared me that Nick's G4P has made a video about bigorexia. And they're like, Jason, I can't believe that you let him make this a couple weeks ago and you haven't even touched it. I can't believe you didn't see it. Well, if you guys don't aware me of it, what makes you think I see it? I don't stand around watching bodybuilding channels. His whole channel is a shrine dedicated to the worship of professional G4P bodybuilding. I mean, I don't sit around watching his crap unless you guys link it to me. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. We're going to skill into my crafting a little bit and let's talk about this. And people are going to say, Jason, I can't believe you're so harsh. Nick is a nice guy. No, Nick pretends to be a nice guy. I saw how he acted with that Artemis Dolman stuff or whatever the guy's name was. Nick is not a nice guy. He's a sneaky snake. He is slippery. He is not a nice guy. He pretends to be a nice guy. I caught all that, Nick. I know exactly. I got you figured out, brother. But the point is, he did a video on bigorexia. Normally, I'm a fan of that. I would say we do need to talk about this. We do need to talk about bigorexia and male body image disorders and all this stuff. Because, this is something that even researchers are only now becoming aware of. Because I remember a smaller YouTube channel, when I talked about this years ago, had said that his professor had said in a lecture in a psychology class, this was an expert on women's body image disorders, and he asked about men as himself as a man who suffered from this. And the guy was reasonably jacked too. He said that the professor said, oh, well, men don't have this problem because they can just go lift weights and the problem goes away. So, I mean, there's a large amount of ignorance even in the scientific and psychiatric world over this topic. But it's a real thing. And what really bothered me is that Nick talked about it and talked about the problems of it, but he didn't actually seem to grasp. So there's this cognitive dissonance there that he doesn't understand that channels like his actually are 90% to blame for this even existing. In other words, if people like Nick who promoted pro bodybuilding nonstop didn't exist and they all went away, bigorexia would go away. Bigorexia isn't cured by going to the gym. Bigorexia is cured by pro bodybuilding and people obsessing over guys on the cover of magazines disappearing. In other words, quit glorifying this crap and it won't happen. But I do agree with one thing of what's causing it is what he said, the start of, he's kind of put it into phases. And it's like, well, no, those phases don't always exist like that. But he broke it into phases, and the first phase was about being insecure, right? That you start training to boost your confidence because you want to look better. Well, I'm going to tell you guys right now, in my experience, I'm not saying training can't boost confidence because it can, but it's the training element that boosts the confidence, not your appearance of it. And what I mean is the actual physical act of training, and I've talked about this a lot in the past, even if you don't look amazing when you're done, actually training boosts self-esteem. Training can boost self-confidence because of the psychological component with the aspect of going in and working on yourself as an individual. Doing something that's positive, that requires consistent hard work to better yourself. The actual physical act itself can psychologically boost your confidence irrespective of the actual results you get. And one of the things I've told people before is that training for numbers actually can do a lot for self-confidence because it's tangible. It's not subjective. Either you squatted 315 or you didn't. You either deadlifted 400 pounds for 3 reps or you didn't. It's very tangible. It's not subjective. It's not subjective based upon how you feel and perceive yourself. It's hard numbers. I feel like that boosts confidence more because it's quantifiable. But that's just my opinion. I know there are a lot of coaches who agree with that, but it is just opinion. But I do agree that is the start of muscle dysmorphia. That is the start of bigorexia. Going to the gym with the purpose of improving your self-esteem and confidence because you don't like how you look, instead of doing it for just overall performance and to feel better and just accept that you're going to look better as a side effect. But yeah, I do agree. That's usually what starts it. Guys who go to the gym with the primary goal of they want to look better, to get the girl, to get the guy. And let's just be honest here, a lot of guys who go do the bodybuilding gig, it is to get the guy, whether they admit it or not. I mean, if you're attracted to competitive bodybuilding, there's a reasonable chance, you've got some unresolved issues. That's why I joke about some of that, but there's a degree of reality to that. When you get into the bodybuilding world, people understand what I'm talking about more. It's very much a down low lifestyle culture. But I digress. Back to the point, yeah, that does set yourself up for problems. It absolutely does. And, but that happens, though. It's normal. And not everyone who goes into training gets that idea. And what he pointed out, where people start to run into problems, is when they reach that comparison phase, where they start comparing their physique to every other guy you see of, oh, is he bigger than me? And really spending a lot of time worrying about it, sizing every guy up. In that regard, in terms of physique, that is where a lot of the problems start. It's absolutely where the problems start. Because at least when you're training, sometimes you're just comparing yourself to yourself. And what I would say to people, if you want to skip his phase 3, stay the hell away from the bodybuilding stuff. In other words, if you're not seeing all these juice heads and you're not seeing all these competitive bodybuilders, because let's be honest, most natural bodybuilders use steroids also. They just don't use as much, or they're not as genetically gifted. Okay, is the enhanced guys. It doesn't mean they're not using just because they don't look like them. So be realistic here. Because if you don't see all these juice heads and you're not exposed to them continually, you don't see that same comparison. That will solve all of your problems right there. That's how you make this whole problem go away. No one's tempted to go on 2 grams of test plus growth hormone if they've never met a human being who's on 2 grams of test and growth hormone. Because they've never met anybody that big, therefore they don't have that comparison, and therefore they don't feel the need to abuse that level of drugs. This isn't a complicated thing here, guys. It isn't that complicated. So in other words, if you don't continually expose yourself to, say, forums like, don't go join bodybuilding.com and hang out there all day, comparing yourself to other dudes, many of whom are blasting gear. Don't hang out on YouTube channels all day watching videos about professional bodybuilders and glorifying it. Guys like Nick's G4P channel. That's a perfect example. Don't hang out at places like his channel if you don't want to develop body image disorders and muscle dysmorphia that makes you think that you will never be big enough. Don't go to bodybuilding shows. Don't go to fitness expos. In other words, if to you training becomes about training, or it becomes about just healthy competition in a competitive environment, you go do some regional strongman or powerlifting meets, or something that's strength related, performance related. That's fine, because competition is good. Men are naturally competitive. We do well in a competitive environment. All right, that is part of being a man. We are competitive. But when you start throwing in the competition in the whole looks category, which is largely dominated by genetics and drugs, it's not really even about hard work. Because to be honest, a lot of pro bodybuilders are lazy as shit when you see them train. They have some of the laziest training you ever see. I've seen teenage kids in every gym I've ever been to who train harder than a lot of professional bodybuilders do. Let's just be honest here. It's about drugs and genetics. So the point there is, you're not exposed to all that all the time, and you're not worried about that end of it, and you only have to worry about training. You only have to worry about your numbers, and again, maybe doing a little bit of healthy competition with other guys as far as is just athletic endeavors or strength endeavors. We do well as men. We do well in that competitive environment. It does push us towards excellence. It can bring out the worst in us, but it can also bring out the best in us. It absolutely can, and you see that a lot in various strength sports and other stuff. Look, stick with that environment, and don't do drugs if you don't want to do drugs. You know what? Go do drug-tested divisions or stay in lighter weight classes. Problem solved. See, that's the beauty of strength sports. If you're 5'9" or 5'10" and you don't want to use drugs, don't try to compete in the 220. Stay in the 181, problem solved. Maybe if you got a decade of experience, try the 198. Don't go into the heavier weight classes. See, that's the beauty of strength sports. There's no need to do drugs if you just stay in the appropriate weight class for your height for drug-free lifters. You'll do just fine. because you're not comparing yourself to a look that is only obtained or a size that's only obtained with drugs. So that's kind of my point, is that if you don't hang around this stuff, you don't get near it, you don't deal with it, you don't look at all the bodybuilding stuff continually, you don't have the influence there that causes the bigorexia to develop in the first place. So the first thing I would say, if you're really worried about bigorexia, like Nick is talking about, avoid channels like his, avoid anything to do with actual bodybuilding, and just stick with training and training knowledge and your own fitness and health and performance, and this problem will never develop in the first place. Online bodybuilding culture has created the bigorexia epidemic. And what they need to admit is guys like Nick who are promoting it, that they're the ones causing it to exist. And if they don't want all these kids to get on drugs, quit glorifying physiques that are produced by abusing massive cocktails of drugs. Quit promoting it and glorifying it and worshiping it. The problem will resolve itself. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.